Good evening, folks. Welcome to Activate Worcester. And we have kind of a little bit of an unusual show tonight. This is a follow-up to a show we did last week where the primary focus was on Kamala Harris. It turns out that people got back to us and they said, what else do you really know about this woman? So Jay was nice enough to come back on again. And as usual, he got his little fingers going and downloaded all sorts of information that we're able to find on Kamala. And because let's face it, she is a very, very important person in our world right now. And we thought that since, she really doesn't say a whole hell of a lot about a lot of subjects, not the least of which is herself, we thought that it might be helpful to us and the viewing public to let them know what we're calling the K-files, okay? And I looked at it and I said, this is kind of like, there was a show that I remember my kids used to watch on PBS years ago, I don't even know if they still do it, called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? And it was a great show. It taught the kids about geography and that sort of thing. So where in the world is Kamala Harris? And out came some rather interesting chestnuts. And perhaps Jay would like to lead us in the conversation. Feel free.
I'll let you come in with a closing kicker at the end. Everybody knows Donald Trump. Queens, school in Pennsylvania, back to Queens, Mr. Manhattan, president. Everybody knows that, but not too many people know about Kamala Harris. The background. Mm-hmm. She says she's a middle-class girl, and we know that part of her policy making will be based on that people like front lawns in their house. How are you going to make things more affordable? Mm-hmm. So who is she? She's 59 years old. She'll be 60 in October, which is quite young at this point, mm-hmm. Especially to Biden and Trump. She's 59, will be 60 in October. She was born in Oakland. She spent her first few years in Berkeley, California, not the music school in Boston. Mm-hmm. Her parents then moved around a bit. I believe in Wisconsin, Illinois. Her younger sister was born in Illinois, mm-hmm. And a few other places because of her parents' work.
And what kind of work did the parents do? Did they work in factories or?
You would think that based on what she implies.
Hardcore, baby, Oakland.
She was medical research, if not a doctor. So she had a PhD.
This is the mother.
The mother.
This is the Indian lady.
Yes.
Okay.
Her father, that was Jamaican. I believe a PhD in economics, and one of his heroes was Karl Marx. So she was born into a very left-wing family. Fine. It's the Bay Area. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. They moved around the Midwest a bit. Her parents divorced when she was about 7. They went back to California, and I presume Berkeley. When she was 12 years old, and 12 is important because she made a comment about when she was a teenager. She moved to, her sister, and her mother moved to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. If you know Montreal, it's basically an island, mm-hmm. Sandwiched in between the two banks of the St. Lawrence. Mm-hmm. She's in kind of the southeast corner of a suburb called Westmount. It is one of the most elite neighborhoods, not in Montreal, not in Quebec, but in all of Canada. So she's not middle class. Mm-hmm. She graduated, she moved there when she was 12, so this is 1976. Mm-hmm. She went to high school, graduated in 81, went to college for a year in Montreal, or in the vicinity, until '82, and then she moved back to the States. She did a couple things before she went to Stanford. It doesn't take much to Google all of this. It's either on her personal Wikipedia page. You can go to Ancestry, and you can go to any number of things. And you can Google map the high school she went to. You can't see it, but it's a typical big, nice high school. There are yearbook photos. You can tell it's her. And she's hanging around with this one guy. If anybody's been to high school in the early '80s, you know what this guy is. Kind of the long hair, T-shirt, typical jacket. It's about as 1981 as you can get. And you can tell just at the time, and I'm bringing this up, what sparked this thought in my head, for good or bad, back when her puppet master, or possibly soon-to-be puppet master, Barack Obama, I was interviewed at what he called Kaminsky Park a number of years back.
Which it's really Comiskey Park, as you
Comiskey
guys know. But he called it Kaminsky Park.
The announcers, and I forget who they were, started asking him about the Chicago White Sox. Well, I don't know anything about that. I grew up in Honolulu, and the Oakland A's were my thing. Well, he was a young kid paying attention to the Oakland A's in the early '70s. And he couldn't name any of the Oakland A's from then. And it's not like they were the 1958 Red Sox, losing 100 games. This is the beginning of their dynasty.
They were a great team.
And you can just be a casual baseball fan to hear of Raleigh Fingers, Reggie Jackson, and it was Joe Rudy.
Sal Bando, Bert Campaneris, Catfish Hunter, and that's just a couple off the top of our heads.
Tony Armstead came to Boston.
Brilliant team.
So I'm thinking, well, okay. So Kamala Harris is in high school in '78, '79, '80, '81. This is the height of all the Canadian classic rock bands. So I, as a musician, would love to ask her, what bands did you listen to? I mean, especially with, Mr. 1981 here in the yearbook photo. Because you've got the Guess Who, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Bryan Adams, Gordon Lightfoot, April Wine, Loverboy, Triumph, my favorite, Rush. My other favorite is Rush. Anne Murray, Joni Mitchell, Paul Anka, Red Rider, which did the song, the only hit they had, I think, Lunatic Fringe. So
that's like the golden age of Canadian music.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
She must know some of this stuff. And I would ask her this as a musician because she got caught in another lie, an unnecessary lie. She used to listen to Tupac in college before Tupac even put out his first album.
But she was on the cutting edge.
Oh, she was so cutting edge. She was listening to him before he even existed. And it's these stupid little things that you want to scream. The policy aside, that there's no need to lie about this stuff. Yep. But the middle class stuff, again, a very affluent part of Montreal. And Ron here just Googled how much the average home is in this very middle class community.
The median price, and again, folks, you can Google it or DuckDuckGo just as quickly as I did. It took about 30 seconds. And the number, as of right now, is $2.297 million, almost $2.25 million for a median house. And there are many that go way, way beyond that. And she says middle class, huh? It was like, her mommy was struggling so, washing floors. No. The mother was a PhD and a brain, and obviously there was money coming from the father and all that sort of thing. And they lived in a very, very Tony section of a very Tony place, meaning Montreal, very upscale. And this was the most upscale in the most upscale area of Canada. There you go. And she's trying to position it. She's just a little girl, mommy's making ends meet. No, mommy made ends meet real well. So don't piggyback on somebody else's labor as if it was yours. Don't lie. Don't obfuscate. Don't expand the truth. Say it as it was. I came from that kind of environment, and as a result, I dealt with many, many upscale, trendy people, because that's what people tend to do. You hang out with people of your social class. She wasn't, some little kid in the corner, and nobody wanted to talk to her because she was quote unquote black. And by the way, Montreal, as Toronto is a very, very multiracial city. No real issues with racial discrimination up there. It's pretty unique. And I've been there several times. I know of what I'm speaking. But nonetheless, she positions it as, she was the outcast. Far from it. Far from it.
And I know I'm being picky between age 12 and being a teenager, like she said, but she did move there in '76 when she's 12. So let me play the clip of her saying she was a teenager.
For most of my childhood, we were renters. My mother saved for well over a decade to buy a home. I was a teenager when that day finally came. And a decade to buy a home. I was a teenager when that day finally came.
I know of no one that confuses being a teenager and being a 12-year-old.
And the other part of that thing, which she also talks about, is that, they rented because her parents were educators and they were constantly moving. So very often, people don't want to, sink big money in roots in a new community. They know they're going to be there a year, 2 years, so they rent. It's not because they were downtrodden and she could barely make ends meet. Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, so she says she's middle class. She isn't.
And she worked
Period.
at McDonald's. I'm sure she was a fry cook at McDonald's for minimum wage, wherever the hell it was.
So if you're living in an equivalent of a $2.3 million house in high school, you're not working at McDonald's for $2.85 an hour, or whatever it was back in the
And
1980s.
mommy saved up for 10 years or whatever it was. Come on.
So she's disingenuous, and she's disingenuous when she doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
But she's also disingenuous when it comes to important things like policy. Now, she's been going around talking about Donald Trump is going to put a nationwide ban on abortion. And when I was watching that, I was hoping Trump say it. He actually did. He said that he can't do it because it's an issue for the states. I don't care if she was an AG. I don't care how she got her start, whether she was working at McDonald's above the counter or working under the table, as it were.
Thank you, Willie.
She's lying about this. And even if she were telling the truth, since Roe v. Wade was overturned and put back to the states, which is where it should be based on Article 1, Section 8, which is enumerated powers, which is basically the federal government has 18 or so things it needs to do, print money, set currency, enter into treaties and contracts with other nations. Because the country needs to do that, not a state like Connecticut or Alabama. Things like that. There were some other things scattered around, but it's primarily, if it's listed there, it's a role for the federal government. If it's not, it goes to the state under the 10th Amendment. It's not that difficult. Abortion is not a federal issue, it's a state issue. And all Trump is doing is bringing that back, is just agreeing with all the classic liberals of the last 50 years. In fact, if you thought the 1968 election was nutty between Humphrey and Muskie, the 72 candidates were really insane. George McGovern and Tom Eagleton. George McGovern, I don't think there's ever been a candidate as liberal as him up until Kamala Harris. He was pro-life, but, I'm sorry, he was pro-choice, but believed the issue belonged at the state level.
McGovern.
McGovern.
Yeah.
And he was amnesty, abortion, and acid, which the Princess of Darkness, Robert Novak, coined him with. His running mate, Tom Eagleton, who the St. Louis Dispatch called him the closest thing to a Kennedy Missouri could have, he was a very staunch, devout Catholic, but he wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade, in a sense because he was pro-life, but in a sense that it belonged at the state issue. And I mean, McGovern and Eagleton, two far-left people. If you need a more recent, Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's a women's icon in the Supreme Court for I don't know how many decades. She even disagreed with Roe v. Wade and thought it belonged down at the state level.
She thought it was bad law.
Yeah, she thought it was bad law based on a bad decision. That's what she thought.
There's a
Another
famous
classic
lawyer from
liberal.
Harvard that now is persona non grata.
Oh, Dershowitz.
Dershowitz. He's now on the outs with the boys because he feels that Roe v. Wade was a bad, bad law. Nothing to do with abortion from his perspective.
Right.
But he looks at it as a purist, a law purist, legal purist, if you will. And his premise is it's a bad law and it should have been modified, changed as they're trying to do right now.
Yeah, so he was a classic liberal. Ginsburg, Eagleton, and McGovern, all far-left people, they all believe it belongs at the state level. And it does. It's just, you read Article 1, Section 8, enumerated powers, you don't see abortion listed anywhere, it's a state issue.
But the thing of it is, what they've turned it into is a litmus test.
Correct.
And, are you pro or con? And right away, there's going to be X percentage of females that are going to say, oh, I want, the right to choose and blah, blah, blah. And if Trump gets in, he's going to wipe it out and so on. And people are going to have to go to back alleys and all this other rhetoric that they come up with. Scare tactics is what they are.
And the ironic thing is there have been more abortions since Roe v. Wade has been overturned than before, at an increased rate.
One of the things I've always found interesting, Planned Parenthood, yes, knights in shining armor. They're going to help the young ladies through this most difficult time. Okay, first of all, where do you find Planned Parenthoods? Do you find them in upscale neighborhoods? Do you find them in Wellesley and so on and so forth? Or in Martha's Vineyard and in Nantucket? No. You're going to find them on the edge of the black neighborhoods, which kind of goes along with the genesis of this whole thing, which was the Saint Margaret Sanger, going way back when, who was very active in this sort of thing, and Woodrow Wilson, going back, for those who know what I'm talking about. The reason that they were into abortion, they wanted to use it as a population control tool to keep the black population down, period. They don't address that. They don't talk about it. But they venerate Margaret Sanger because she's providing all of these wonderful benefits for people. They can make their own decisions, blah, 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 blah. Forget the morality involved. Forget the legality. And this is what we're dealing with now. And unfortunately, the young women, again, they don't know very much about other things, but they know about abortion. And for that reason, they will stay with the Democratic Party, not realizing what they're really buying into, if you will. In other words, they're being suckered and they're being used. It's simple as that. It's a shame.
So to make it clear, I'm not coming out as pro-life or pro-choice. I'm just saying that this is what the Constitution says, and this is where this, as an issue, belongs.
Indeed.
And that's it. Frankly, I don't care one way or the other. Let the states decide. you're much better off contacting your state rep that lives down the street than worrying about some. And now, that said, if you go strictly by enumerated powers, you can eliminate a whole lot of other issues that are causing problems: housing, health care, the general welfare system, and it's just issue after issue. I'd like to see a poll of single women in the 5 or 6 swing states and how they're tracking. As of right now, so let's see, let me get my map out. There was Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona. Those 5 states went red in 2016 and blue 4 years ago. I think that ends up being a total of, I think, 77 electoral votes. In the last census, there was a net gain for Republicans of 3. So the election, Biden-Trump, it was 306 to 232. You recalculate those states, it's now 303 to 235. Trump only needs to pick up 35 electoral votes to reach 270 to win. Of these swing states, there are 77. So he needs to have some combination of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 states. Wisconsin is 10, Michigan is 15, Pennsylvania dropped from 20 to 19, Georgia 16, Arizona 11, Nevada 6. And then Trump was pulling even in New York and New Jersey. I think those are gone now that Kamala is in it. But he does have New Mexico at 5 and possibly Virginia at 13. Even if those go for Kamala, that's fine. But it is interesting that New Hampshire, which has been a blue state for 20 years now, see, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 5 election cycles, Kamala Harris is up at Hampton Beach campaigning. That's an indication that they're having trouble in what should be safe blue states. And for every dollar spent in a safe blue state is $1 in a minute they can't spend on a swing state that they need to keep.
Well, when she appeared, I think it was in Nashua last week, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, they had to literally truck people up, safe people, truck them up from Massachusetts, because the hall that they did this in was like 1/8 filled. So they brought as many people up, to cheer wildly and hold signs and all that sort of thing from the People's Republic of Massachusetts.
So in the last couple of weeks, I've driven all through New Hampshire, up the seacoast part, up to Farmington and Guilford, Fitzwilliam Keene, and cutting across Concord and up. I'm not seeing very many Kamala, if any at all. See a lot of Trump, a lot of the local races, obviously.
That's true.
And of course, there's always these guys like they're the Japanese soldier stranded on some island in 1952 that thinks the war hasn't ended yet. So you'll see the Ross Perot thing, and it's some joke. But
I even see Kennedy signs. I don't know if they're recycled from 1960 or not.
and that's another thing. When you have RFK, I mean, this is political Democrat royalty, leaving the Democrat Party or being pushed out and going with Trump. I mean, people in these swing states, they don't know about Chappaquiddick, that Joe Jr. flipping his Jeep over and crippling Pam Kelly. And they don't know about the waitress sandwich and all the other stuff. They know Camelot. And even if that just moves the needle a point, that's critical in a very close state.
But see, the thing of it is, RFK, where he's coming from, obviously there are many issues that he and Trump are not in league on, but there are many things that he is all about, basically draining the swamp. and getting after, big pharma and so on and so forth, and this unhealthy marriage, the shotgun marriage that's going on. And you might even see somebody like Tulsi Gabbard be very active in an administration. And these are people that are not going to be involved in any way, God forbid, with a Kamala group. Take a look at what Biden has inflicted on us for a cabinet. Look at this guy, Mayorkas, who's to this day says that, the border is under control. This guy should have been taken out and tarred and feathered, for God's sake, with his little head. One more thing I just wanted to mention, because again, this is topical stuff. Guns. Everybody is against guns. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Kamala came out with something, I heard this driving in here. She's saying that she wants to have government people going into homes of folks who obviously have licenses, and they have the information about the guns that you have, and how do you keep them, and the ammunition, is it in a safe place, and do you keep your guns in a gun safe, and blah, blah, blah. First of all, the government has no reason to be into your house to be doing that. But on top of it, she's saying you really don't need any legal due process. No court order is going to be required. They can just come knock on your door and say, we're here, we're from the government, and we know that you have guns. Show us what you have, where you keep it, and so on. What the hell are we coming to? And it's beyond the idea of guns. The fact that, what is this, Germany? That they can kick the door in for all intents and purposes and force their way into your residence and check things out. This is the view that these folks have. Top down, everything controlled from Washington. Kamala is the spokesperson for the left. It's not just her. And if it's not her, it'll be somebody else that'll espouse the same things for the machine. I don't like the machine. I think we have to blow the damn machine up.
Somebody ought to ask her what type of gun she owns.
Yeah, she and Waltz both have guns. I bet pea shooters or something.
He has a loaded tampon.
Anyway, yeah, that too. Anyway, we get rolling at these things, folks, and it's tough to stop. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned some things. If you have any issues with them, let us know. We'd like to be corrected if we're wrong. And we look forward to having you watch us again next week and in the future. We've got some great shows coming up, especially with the big elections, both local, regional, and national as well. So keep tuning, and thanks for watching.
And drive at 25.
That's right. Good night.